Support for the CivicSciTV network comes from listeners and viewers like you, and organizations such as the Rita Allen Foundation, which invests in transformative ideas in their earliest stages to leverage their growth and promote breakthrough solutions to significant problems. Go to ritaallen.org to learn more.
Mapping the global landscape of civic science by dissecting new insights from researchers, practitioners, and leaders in academia, government, for-profit, and nonprofit organizations. This is Questions of the Day with Fanuel Muindi.
Now, 2 years ago, we actually talked with LabXchange, and we talked with Marty Samuels at that time, who gave us a quick preview of what this platform was all about. And so I'm glad to have Liana Sawka with me here today. She's the Outreach and Communications Manager of LabXchange. Liana, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Fanuel. It's great to be here in this virtual space with you.
So let's just get started, Liana. Could you just tell us what is LabXchange?
Absolutely. LabXchange is the World Science Classroom. That is the easiest way to say it. A little bit more complicated would be to say that we are a free digital platform for science education. So what does that mean? Basically, we've just tried to create a space where science educators, science learners, and really anyone interested in science can enter a free space for collaboration, for knowledge gathering, knowledge sharing, and for creating their own science learning journey. So that includes a content library. We have over 22,000 publicly available free resources, lab simulations, video, audio, documents, and everything in between. As well as the opportunity to author with that content. So you can make a pathway, which is kind of like a playlist. You can have a private class where you can share that content with others. And you can also use the space as a place to connect with other educators, with other learners, and with other people who are passionate about science from all over the world.
So who exactly is the target audience? From reading online, it sounds like you're targeting middle school, high school, college, and also educators, right? Is that right?
Absolutely. So I can actually speak to this a little bit from my perspective as a communications professional. We launched to the world in January 2020, and the world was a very different place back then. So we had certain ideas and hypotheses about what might happen with our free online resource. And then, of course, 3 months later, the global landscape for education and health and science changed very, very dramatically with the onset of the COVID pandemic. And so very quickly, we started learning some really big lessons. And so in the 4 years since then, we've really been working on our communications and our messaging to really sort of not exclude anyone from our open science classroom. Really, anyone is welcome. But at the end of the day, when we think about the work that we do to communicate and promote LabXchange, reaching educators is really critical, because educators are not only a target audience for LabXchange and the tools and the content that we create, but educators are also such powerful catalysts for reaching others. So when you reach an educator, you're potentially reaching their students, you're potentially reaching their colleagues, you are even reaching parents and other people in their communities. And so a lot of the work that LabXchange is currently doing is thinking about engaging, supporting, and developing educators. But we are also completely open to anyone over the age of 13 who wants to make a free account on LabXchange and explore the resources that we offer, or even under the age of 13. You don't have to make an account to engage with LabXchange. So really anyone can jump on and learn about ecology and genetics and climate change and all of the other amazing topics that we cover.
And so you actually call these assets, right? So you have a partnership model where you go and source. And I was wondering if you could talk more about this process. How do you find these assets, as you call them?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I apologize for the jargon. I think we straddle education and technology, and so sometimes we use a little bit of our own shop talk. So thank you for asking me to define asset. So an asset is basically a learning resource, a piece of content, a single video, a single teaching guide, a single case study, a single simulation. And yes, as you said, we have a collaborative model, and this is something that was really important to us from the beginning. We are based at Harvard University. We have a team of, I think, around 12 to 14 people who are based at Harvard, which includes subject matter experts on data science and biology and biotechnology. And so we do create some of those learning resources in-house. But we always wanted to allow for other perspectives and other ways of teaching concepts and showcasing concepts and telling stories about science. And that's why, we reached out to you, Fanuel, early on, and now our network includes over 150 organizations that create some kind of learning material or material that communicates science. So of the 22,000 plus and growing resources that we have in our library, the vast majority are from organizations that collaborate with us. We have a collaborative model. We really believe that that's the only way to affect change. I think in the sort of startup era that we live in now, you see a lot of organizations sort of going about trying to solve a problem or, tackle an issue on their own. And we just feel that we are much stronger together, and not replicating efforts, but helping each other fill in gaps, and bridge different concepts, bridge different groups, different regions. As we were chatting earlier, Fanuel, you called it an ecosystem, and I think that's a really wonderful way of describing what we're trying to do at LabXchange.
Yeah. So you mentioned the word gaps, right? Ecosystem. I'm curious if you can place LabXchange in that context. Where do you see LabXchange sitting, or where does it sit, and what problems is it solving for, in this case, educators? Because that's the group that you mentioned.
So again, kind of going back to the target audience, we created a really big challenge for ourselves in trying to be something for so many people. But we picked that challenge and we're sticking with it. It's really important to us to be able to meet educators and learners wherever they are, globally. And that looks very different in very different, places. So, when we started building LabXchange, we worked with a wonderful group of educators from the greater Boston area and New England, who helped us create some of our very first flagship content on biotechnology. And we were thinking about the challenges that those educators faced. So, even though they're in Massachusetts or the northeastern US, where we have access to a lot of resources, we don't have to worry necessarily about electricity or connectivity. But teachers everywhere are still constrained by, a lack of time, a lack of lab equipment and lab resources. So LabXchange is trying to support educators in the US who may lack access to the types of equipment and resources that they need to provide hands-on lab experiences to their students. In the 4 years since we started that work, we've expanded a lot globally. We're now working with a lot of classrooms in Africa, and the problems and the constraints look really different. So now we're looking at situations where a school doesn't have electricity. A school is, limited to an educator's mobile phone to watch a video sort of gathered around the phone together. And so we are trying to meet those educators and those learners as well, we think that they deserve to be included in the online learning revolution just as much as, the educators in the US who have a Chromebook for every student in their classroom. And so we're sort of designing in both directions, right? So we design our content and our platform to be used in as low bandwidth environments as is possible for the type of platform that we've created. We try to make as much of the resources that we create mobile friendly, and of course our fellow collaborators in the library, many of them also offer learning resources that are accessible to anyone regardless of where they are and what their learning context is like.
Yeah, so I would like to get into what you guys have learned, right? You launched in 2020, right? So time is passing, and I'm curious if you can share nuggets. What are you hearing from the various groups that you are working with, right? From the partners, maybe you can share a little bit of what you're hearing from them, from contributing content, and then educators, perhaps, right? And I know from on your YouTube channel, you have a couple of educators that are sharing like their responses, right? And which will showcase that. Can you share us a little bit more about what you're hearing on the impact side? What are they telling you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so you mentioned our collaborator network, and I'll say that's one of the first lessons that we learned. So if you are trying to build a collaborative library of open online learning resources, you really need to be able to back it up with support for the organizations that contribute that content. And so we're really proud that we're able to support all of our collaborators in um, making the effort as low a lift as possible. So if there are any content creators listening out there who create high quality learning resources, we'd love to hear from you. And we are all, dealing with capacity and bandwidth issues, but know that if you're interested in joining the LabXchange community, we will take on as much of that effort as possible so that you can focus on your work of creating more learning resources. When it comes to what we've learned from our educators, well, first of all, again, going back to sort of the lesson that we learned when we sort of opened the floodgates in January 2020 and opened live to the world, we learned early on that we needed to build in as many ways to engage with educators as possible so that we could hear directly from them what they need and act on that. I think that's the important part, right? A lot of platform creators, a lot of even paid products out there, they're creating products and services that aren't necessarily co-developed with their end user, the way that LabXchange always has been. And so we really take that to heart, and we really want what we do to be a conversation. And again, that looks very different. The conversation is different depending on where folks are. So in 2023, we revitalized our teacher ambassador program, which provides training and co-creation and sort of grassroots advocacy training for teachers around the world in small groups. So from our teachers in the US, we've learned that they are really eager to get more NGSS, Next Generation Science Standards aligned content. So we started working on curriculum alignment and adding resources to our library that really help teachers save time. They have to teach to a specific curriculum, a specific calendar. So we're working on making sure that that is as seamless as possible. Then looking at our colleagues, our teachers in places like Kenya, Nigeria, they're also thinking about curriculum alignment, but as I said before, they're also thinking about bandwidth issues, access to technology. So how can we do that for our teachers in places like Africa or Latin America, where they may be more reliant on mobile phones in the classroom, where the teaching context looks very different. So listening and acting.
listening, and acting. So when we come back, I'm going to be asking Liana some rapid fire questions. All right, so don't go away.
Problem: you're doing cutting edge research that the public doesn't understand. You're incredibly busy and outreach takes a lot of time. The solution: Galactic Polymath, an education studio that helps you connect to the most important audience for growing STEM literacy, K through 12 classrooms. So, how do we connect your research to the classroom? At Galactic Polymath, we create beautiful visuals to communicate your science, design engaging lessons around your data,
analyze our data and find out for yourself,
align to teacher standards and practices, help you complete outreach on a funded grant, and win grants by having stellar broader impacts, ultimately simplifying your outreach efforts.
Welcome back. So we're talking with Liana Sawka about LabXchange and all the lessons that I've been learning. And we began to dabble with that a little bit, Liana. I would like to get a little bit deeper. So what is the top metric for LabXchange in terms of impact that you guys, you see this metric, you're like, this is it. This is our, if I use the acronym KPI, and I apologize for the acronyms, but is there a KPI that, keeps you all at night, up at night?
Well, I would say educator account creation is really important to us because, as I said before, LabXchange is totally free and open. You can go in, browse the library, play with the simulations, explore the videos for as long as you want without ever creating an account or signing in. If you take the time to create an account, which again is completely free, but time is not free, right? We all have limited time. So if you take that extra 5 minutes to create an account and show us that you're interested in coming back and saving content to your dashboard and maybe creating a class, maybe creating a pathway of your own, that's really showing us that what we are doing is resonating with you. And so I think that's probably the one metric that we're most passionate about. And again, as I said before, when you see that educators are coming to the platform, there's a good chance that their students are also engaging. And like those educators, we're passionate about inspiring the next generation of scientists, or even just science literate and science passionate people, whether or not you consider yourself a scientist or a STEM professional. So again, educators, I think, are the linchpin of everything that we do.
Yeah. So actually, another question I had was, if you had to pick one audience as your target audience, who would it be? And it sounds like educators, I think, are the core. Could you give us a rough breakdown of the users? When we had Marty, he had mentioned a large percentage of them are actually the high school and college students, right? And educators are the next segment. Is that still the case now, or how has it shaped up over the years?
Yeah. It depends. I can tell you that since we launched in 2020, we have reached almost 49,500,000 people around the world. So almost 50 million. So exciting. We're so excited to celebrate that milestone. We know that the sort of influential segment within that are our educators. And of course, the majority of that are the learners, as Marty said, the young people who are engaging with the content that their teacher has assigned them or shared with them, or, are using our lab simulations to prep for a research experience or a college class, or to start thinking about, a potential career journey that brings them in contact with the STEM field. So I think that's still accurate.
Yeah. And as you guys look forward, right, the next 5 years, right? So clearly you want to hit the next million. Sounds like that's a goal there, right? To get to that 50 or some change. What are questions that you guys are asking yourselves now, looking ahead, right? What are those questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked a little bit about gap analysis earlier. So, we've created and curated 22,000 resources from 150 content sources, but we're doing important work to make sure that we are really able to support all of the disciplines that science teachers are disseminating in their classrooms. So that includes, taking a look at our library, making sure that, we have enough physics resources to be useful and meaningful to a physics educator or a chemistry educator or somebody who does a lot of work in ecology, climate science, agriculture, whatever the case may be. Um, we talked about the curriculum mapping, so making sure that our resources are, really kind of plug and play in a way for whatever test or exam or, national standard you have to work around. And then moving forward, we're also thinking about the journey beyond, right? So we've talked a lot about how we support high school education, middle school education, students in classrooms with educators. What happens after students graduate or leave school? For those who are heading to university, they've hopefully got sort of a good path forward with supports on the way. Once they get to university, hopefully they've got sort of a new infrastructure and new people around them to sort of supporting the next step in their journey. But that period in between, we think, is really important, because not everyone who leaves high school goes on to university or a 4-year college. And so we want to make sure that everybody is sort of being included in this conversation about the future of science, the future of STEM. And so we're working on a new resource called the Career Explorer, which will help really anybody start thinking about their skills, their talents, their interests, and the knowledge that they need to match with those things in order to chart a path towards a career. Starting in the biological sciences, we hope to expand beyond that as well. And we'd like for it to be, sort of agnostic of, whether you are going into a 4-year research university, right? Being in the Boston area, we know that there are so many excellent career opportunities in the life sciences and in biotech. And at least here in Massachusetts, we also know that there's a real disconnect between those career opportunities and the communication and the invitation to people from our local communities to enter those sectors, enter those fields, secure those jobs. So that's something we'll be thinking quite a bit about in the coming years as well.
Yeah, as you're talking, I was just thinking about another organization that we had recently, GenSpace, that you might know about, who are located in New York. They're community biology lab there, physical space where the community can come along and actually do experiments and plug into existing experiments, which I think is very fascinating. Eliana, for our audience, so they are scientists, they are other practitioners, so the content creators that you were mentioning, right? They're probably listening to this, right? So one, sounds like for the content creators, they should explore the library, right? See if there's a way to partner with you. If they want to do that, right, what's the process? Can you share a little bit of that? And then I want to get into the scientists as well. What's your message for them who might be listening to this?
Yeah, absolutely. So for content creators, organizations that have content and digital media, there's a contact us link in the footer at labexchange.org. You can also drop us an email at learn@labexchange.org. And we'd be happy to, take a look and chat about your content and see if collaborating is a good fit. And when it comes to the scientists, we also want individual scientists and researchers to be part of our ecosystem and part of our conversation as well. Faniel, this is, in part your legacy as well as sort of the first kind of collaborator that focused on narrative and biographical content with the Journal of Stories and Science. We continue that work as well. We'd love to see more narratives, biographical narratives from people who are part of this STEM universe, whatever that looks like, whatever that means to you. We would love to have the opportunity to publish your story and your lessons and your message to young people. I would love to chat more about that, and the possibilities are endless. So if an idea comes to mind that I haven't mentioned or that hasn't come up in our conversation, we'd still love for you to reach out.
Yeah. So ecosystem builder, right? The fabric of this whole universe, as you're calling it. I think there are some real challenges you're trying to tackle, right? From what I understand, where there's no electricity, right, or no internet. What happens there? And I know with my conversation with Marty, we explored a little bit of that, right? That's a challenge, right? That's makes it really difficult to address at the moment. I don't think LabXchange can be downloaded right into a device at this time. Now, I think the audience will say, my goodness, you didn't ask this very, very important question. I'm curious about the role of AI in the development of this platform now.
Okay.
ChatGPT has exploded, and there's AI in everything now. Is LabXchange thinking about this at this time, or what is that integration process possibility?
Big question, big exciting question. Well, I can speak to actually one other opportunity for individuals to get involved, which includes AI tools. So I can definitely say we're thinking about using AI to sort of maximize our resources and our sort of capacity as a small team. So thinking about all of the ways in which we can incorporate these new resources to make our resources stronger, better, make us more efficient, so that we can really focus on the important work of creating content and getting it out to people around the world. One really interesting use case for machine learning and AI that we've encountered. So one other goal that we have for our platform is to translate our resources and our platform into 30 languages by 2026. So we're up to 17, so more than halfway there. And we've discovered that using a combination of human reviewers and human translators and content that has been translated by things like DeepL or even Google Translate, we can speed up that process pretty significantly. So we are actually actively looking for people who are interested in seeing their language represented on LabXchange and supporting us by reviewing translations, doing translations. So if anyone's interested, again, learn at labexchange.org. You can reach out, and we'd love to share more about that journey with you.
Now, I wish we could just keep on talking, right? There's so much to uncover, and we are still nibbling on the edges here, right? So clearly we need to have you back. And I know you're a small but mighty team, and you're working on different areas. And so what we look forward to do is to engage those different members to explore what are these lessons you're learning from their respective roles in this really fantastic project that is developing. So with that, Ileana, we'll leave it there, and looking forward to have you back very soon.
Thank you so much, Fanuel. Looking forward to coming back.
Why do stakeholders choose the CivicSciTV network?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, great question.
That's a good one.
That's a great question.
CivicSciTV. Top experts, great questions, new insights. Subscribe to the CivicSciTV network on YouTube and don't miss new insights from diverse stakeholders.